Good afternoon, good morning, good evening, good night, even wherever you are in the world. This is Gala on the Move. I'm at the Queen Street Mill. There we go. That's a textile mill. Okay, Queen Street Mill, this label here. And we are in the city of, or town of Burnley, part of Lancashire. Now, I have done a video on Burnley and all the history of Burnley, about the mills, textile, the silk industry, the cotton industry, the shoes, and the cotton mills. So I've done that. If you look back on the videos on Burnley, you see all the history about it. And part of this mill today, where I am, is the evolvement of the industrial era of Burnley. Now, this mill is still functioning. So it's one of the very few in the country which is still functioning. So I'm here today to film. I came yesterday to film, but then unfortunately they were closed. So I did a little history about Burnley. The history of the city, the iconic places, crime, and we're in Briarcliff. There's Briarfield and Briarcliff. Today is Briarcliff. And yesterday, the very astonishing statistic which I found about Briarcliff is it's a leafy part of Burnley, which means that, to live here, you have to have a little bit of money to afford property here. But unfortunately, the houses I filmed yesterday were so nice and big and a very beautiful place with the hills everywhere and a beautiful, very fresh air and beautiful place to live. But then the crime is very low here, like theft, robbery and things like that. But then the highest was that there's domestic violence and sexual violence in this area. So it just tells you all that glitters is not gold. You would think people living in those beautiful houses, the rich people, that these things shouldn't be happening there because they've got the money and everything. Unfortunately, the statistics are pretty high, and I was pretty shocked. But anyway, that's by and by. We're here today at the mills, the Queen Street textile mill. And it's one of the very few, if not the only one, the mill which is still functioning. This is Gala on the Move. We are on the move. Please subscribe to my channel and click the like button. And if you're new on this platform, please subscribe, share with your families, friends, and relatives, and follow me around where I'll be going or where I've been, and see the world through my lenses. Anyway, we are in Briarfield today, Briarcliff today, and at the mill, one of the only few working mills, textile mills in the country. So, for those who have subscribed and follow me on my journey, I'm very grateful, and from the bottom of my heart, I do thank you. Please keep following me, and let's see the world through my lenses. So we are at Queen Street Mill in Briarcliff. There's a man-made lake here, as you can see, just in front of the mill. And look how beautiful the hills are. Lancashire is full of hills and it's so beautiful. There are some dwellings just over there. This is the perimeters of the mill, so you can stop and have a drink or something to eat here. And there's this tower up here. Look at this huge tower outside. I can't even see the end of it. I suppose that's what chains out all the fumes and the after effects of the textile milling. It's a pretty old building, but these buildings are so durable. A lot of them have been converted into apartments because of the walls are so solid. And here in Lancashire, this is a type of stone which is used to build the 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 houses as well, the mills. This is looks like this is a modern addition because the brick is different. I did a video on Accrington and the kind of brick, the Nori brick or the Nori stone, which is used here in Lancashire. It's very durable and it's the strongest stone. I think we're here. I'm going in now, the guided tour. This is the inside. I'm going to keep very quiet because somebody is taking us on a guided tour. So this is the entrance, the reception area. Yeah, so.
Welcome to Queen Street Mill, which is our Grade 1 listed ancient monument. Potentially, we're debating this, maybe the only steam-powered weaving mill still working in the world. Probably the only one working in Britain anyway. And it is now again operational. Before we start, be careful please, the floor in most places is original, so it's pretty bumpy, be careful with that. There is one bit that's on the first floor. If anyone's got any mobility issues, there is a lift to get to that bit, so that's the only place that's not on the level. Before we start, what we like to do is just give you a bit of basics about weaving. So you'll have to come in closer, I'm afraid, while I explain to you some basic bits and pieces. Fill up the space so you can all see what's going on. So this is hand loom. So this is where weaving would have taken place before the Industrial Revolution in cottages, farmhouses and some small workshops, and it would all have been done by hand. What happened between this and the looms you'll see later on is it was just mechanised. The process didn't change, and the process of weaving hasn't changed for thousands of years. So what you've got are the threads that run from the back of the loom to the front, which are called the warp threads, which are these, and they're held under tension by the rollers at the back and the front. You then have the cotton that we weave in between it from side to side, which we call the weft. Now to do that on the hand loom, you've got two pedals. And what they do is raise these heels. And if you look closely, you'll see these heels are little metal bars with eyes in them. And each one of them lifts half of the warp threads at a time. So on here we've got about 800 warp threads. On the power looms we've got 2,500. But there's a limit as to how far you can weave, how wide you can weave on a hand loom. So what you do is you press the pedal, it lifts half the threads up and creates a gap which is called the shed. And through that, I've lifted the right one, and cast the shuttle. Now this isn't a hand loom shuttle, it's the only one we've got, but it demonstrates that it breaks. A problem we have, I'll explain it now, that they didn't have back in the day when this mill was working, is that our cotton breaks a lot. Cotton needs hot temperatures and moist air. We can't reproduce that anymore because we can't afford to keep the mill at 80, 90 degree temperature. So our cotton tends to break very easily, unfortunately. You've seen the process, and then you create this shed again, pass the shuttle. As you can see, I want to make a living back in the day. As a hand loom weaver, I'll try one more. When we've done that, we pull the sleigh, which is this, down, and in the sleigh you'll see there's a metal plate, very, very fine gaps in it, called the reed. And through that passes all the warp threads, which then allows you to bash it down. So that's the process of hand weaving. The limit for how wide you can weave on a hand loom is about that far. because you've got to throw the shuttle. The next development was the flying shuttle. You can see a photograph here of someone using a handle, which was basically the shuttle was put on wheels on here and on a rope, and you could throw it further from side to side. But there was still a limit to how far you could throw it and how fast you could do it. So these were in the farmhouses, in the little workshops. Families were running this. The men of the family have actually done the weaving. The women of the family generally did the spinning. This, if they owned it, sometimes they rented it, was very valuable. You get the word heirloom from the fact that the loom was passed down in the family. It was a very valuable asset. So the heir to the family got the loom. So that's the principle of weaving. You'll see more of the process as we go round. Next, what we do is we go outside. Because it's a steam powered mill, we start with the steam. So if you follow me outside, I'll show you our
I'm
boilers.
going to fight them then, I'm not in anybody's way.
Okay. It is very well maintained, still works as it did. No bearings, that's why you've got a lot. I think Peter the engineer tell you 20 or 30 oiling points, just completely soaked in oil to make sure it keeps running. But when you consider how old it is, and it ran the first time when he started it up 2 weeks ago, after being out of action for about 5 years, it's not bad. When you start it in the morning, when you first start it, a bit like going on the bicycle, the crank which drives the flywheel has to be in the right position. So if it's not, you have to move the flywheel. Originally that was done by hand, and I've helped Peter move it with a 10-foot long crowbar, and it takes quite a bit of effort. Later on you'll see there's a little engine at the end. They put an engine on to move it for you. But that crank's just got to be in just the right place, otherwise you can't get it going. Revolves at 68 revolutions a minute, and the speed is governed by this governor, which is the mechanism here with the two balls on the top that stops it from going too fast, and that's governed by the steam that you put in it. If that breaks, you've got problems, and there are cases in Burnley where the engine got out of control and the flywheel exploded. And when that happens, most of your mill goes and parts of the flywheel end up several hundred yards away. So you've got to make sure it's working properly. You'll see all the oil though, everything just sits in vats of oil to make sure it's properly lubricated.
That's the oil. That's the oil to lubricate the machines. Powerful machines. Beautiful.
Yeah.
They've worked for over 100 years. Just came to have something to eat, and obviously I didn't, and then I decided to film a little bit. See you in my next video. It's Gala on the move. We're on the move. See England through my lenses, and we are on the move.